for educational purposes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular July meeting of the Concord Zoning Board of Adjustment. We will follow our usual procedure this evening, which is to say we'll call the cases in the order in which they appear in the agenda. We'll ask the appellant to come forward, be sworn in, and have a seat in the chairs to my right, and offer any testimony that he or she would like us to hear. Following that, we will ask the appellant to step down, and we will solicit testimony from anyone who is in favor of the appeal, and following that, anyone who is in opposition to the appeal. After that testimony, I will check in with Code Enforcement to see if there are any comments from the Code Enforcement Administrator. And then, if any information has come forth that seems to bear factual clarification, the appellant will have the opportunity to offer that clarification, not new arguments, prior to our closing the public testimony portion of the hearing. We ask the appellants to confine their testimony to 10 minutes, and those from the audience who come up to speak to confine their testimony to 5. We have an unusual situation this evening, which is that we are shorthanded by one person on the board, which means that all cases except for case 4118, which I will come back to in a moment, Beatrice Murphy, will have only a 4-member board hear their case. You have the option, should you choose, to defer tonight and be heard next month by a 5-member board. If you choose to be heard tonight, you need to keep in mind that any motion needs to pass with 3 votes in the affirmative, and the fact that you were heard by a 4-member board does not constitute grounds for requesting a rehearing. In the case of the Beatrice Murphy case, I have a conflict of interest in that case, which means there would only be a 3-member board for that case, which means the vote would have to be unanimous. Does anyone wish to defer their hearing to another night in order to have a 5-member board? I see some shaking heads and no nodding heads.
Beatrice Murphy does not wish to defer.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay. I guess we'll go forward with the hearings in the order in which they appear in the agenda. The first case this evening is 3918 Neocraft Signs for Carl and Priscilla Gray. The applicant wishes to install an internally illuminated 14-foot, 10-inch tall pylon sign and requests the following variances: to the table of maximum sign dimensions to permit a sign of 14 feet 10 inches tall, where the maximum height allowed for a freestanding sign is 12 feet, and to sign illumination provisions to permit an internally illuminated sign where, or to internally illuminated signs where illumination is only permitted by external light sources for property located at 104 Loudon Road in an IS institutional district. May I swear you in, sir?
Yes, please.
You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Only the truth.
Very good. Would you identify yourself for the record as you testify, please?
My name is Michael Matthew. I'm here on behalf of Bangor Savings Bank, actually, who is the tenant of the building. I'm with Neocraft Signs doing the sign work for the client.
Can you fill us in on why you believe the request meets the criteria for a variance?
Well, looking at the area we're in and the surrounding businesses, if you will, what we're proposing is a pylon-style sign internally illuminated, which actually matches more or less the entire roadway in the area in which it's in. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can pan to the left. Right across the street would be a Dunkin' Donuts, which has a probably 20-foot sign internally illuminated. Right there you can see, right across the street. And then just past the Bangor Savings location, you can barely make it out. There's a Wendy's sign there, roughly 20 feet, internally illuminated, and across the street from that would be a McDonald's at 25 feet, internally illuminated. It seems this would be the only business to be an externally illuminated location at this time. I know the zoning has to start and end somewheres. I get that, but it seems this one building or one property seems to be on its own little island, if you will, in that area. So what we're actually asking for is a reduced sign from what's there currently. For the square footage we're asking for is a 32 square foot sign. I apologize. The one that's there now, I believe, is the 40 square feet, which is the maximum allowed in the area. The sign there that's currently on site is kind of old, dilapidated, still contains fluorescent lights, which are nowadays a hazard to society. So if we were to remove those, we actually have to quarantine them more or less, bring them back to the shop, record it, and dispose of them properly. Those just sitting there is really not a good thing. The Previous tenant just chose to go ahead and light from the outside, not doing anything or any maintenance to the internal of that sign. So again, just a safety hazard. Secondary, the bank is noting that people leaving the drive-up window with that large sign that's there now is also a safety hazard getting onto that road where it is a 4-lane highway, if you will, with, I believe, a 35 to 40 mile an hour area. The sign we're proposing, I hope you all have a drawing of that. If not, I'm not sure. Would have a smaller base as far as the width of it going up. And then again, that 4x8 top, internally illuminated. It's more of an indirect light at this point. The sign is made of a white acrylic that is going to be covered for the most part, I'd say almost 85%, with a blue translucent vinyl, so to give a soft glow on that blue part of it. Savings Bank is in a gray, which is the same idea. It's a solid vinyl that just, again, allows a limited amount of light. The Bangor part would be the only part that would show white light, but again, a white translucent, if you will, because of the acrylic. So we feel at this time, and being in New England with snow, ground lighting like it shows now really gets hindered partway through the year with snow. People can't go out there to clean it, what have you. So we're just asking to have the internal illumination to match what's in the surroundings of the environment. Again, across the street down the road, if you come back towards where we are now, you have the Shell station in the mall, which again, large cabinets, all internally illuminated. So this would be our grounds for looking to do that, as well as maintaining the look and the brand of Bangor Savings throughout New England. This is what they do. This is what they have for signs.
Questions from the board?
So do you happen to know you're essentially saying all the other commercial signs nearby are internally illuminated? Were those pre-existing uses, or did they have variances? How are they?
As far as I know, it's a different zone right there across the street.
Oh.
So the zone stops right in that area, if I'm not mistaken.
Andrew, if you look in the packet, or I think, there's the zoning map, and it's, everything around it is different.
That's why I
zoning.
referred to it as an island. It seems
I see. You're in the, so those are retail and you're institutional, basically.
again, because it's a financial institution at this point.
Well, I think it's got matched up with the National Guard headquarters property.
Right, which, yeah, and National Guard is the only one which has some very large letters on the building, but no external sign, so there was
I
no
was thinking
question.
about that from the point of view of zoning.
Right, yeah.
So, okay.
And again, as far as aesthetics go, that sign's been there quite a while. This would dress it up again, look more like the area and the surrounding signs around it.
Other questions from the board?
I have one. You're asking for a sign that's 14 feet, 10 inches tall, where it's 12 feet by zoning. Why can't you do 12 feet?
We could do 12 feet. We have an existing sign for the customer, which is also a financial savings for them if they can reutilize this sign, which if we were to install it the way it is 1410.
Okay.
We could reduce the pole height and bring it down to 12 if need be.
Okay.
I was saving that.
Oh, you mean the existing sign from another location
Right.
that you'd like to reuse to save them space?
Exactly, yeah, so again, financially, it helps them out on this relocation.
The sign area is okay, Craig?
Yeah, 40 square feet would be the maximum permitted in the institutional zone, and they have the 30, yeah. What do we say, 37?
32, roughly,
32
just
square
over
feet.
32.
They have that much frontage for the building, so.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Nick, anything? No.
Could I mention one last thing? I met with the architectural board by mistake, I think in advance, and they recommended bushes around the bottom of the base to dress it up a little bit. Would be the other reason we'd want to stay around from ground lighting. If they would like bushes to make it look better, then that would hinder external lighting.
Any other questions? Nick, did you have any questions? No. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Any comments from code enforcement?
Well, just for the record, I want to point out that this isn't necessarily a mistake or a gaffe that this bank is in this zoning district. Again, the district lines are drawn occasionally to try and incorporate the most continuity when it comes to zoning districts. And, you know, banking, institutional type use of that nature is a use that's otherwise permitted in the institutional district. So it's a conforming, complying use there, so.
All right. With that, we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. There's no need for factual clarification, inasmuch as there was no further testimony. We have a request for a sign variance, the argument being that the other buildings and signs around this particular property are in a different zone and therefore have a different style of sign, and the appellant would like to be able to have a similar sign on their business. Discussion.
I was going to say, I think that going to the sign proposed, it is safer. I have tried to pull out of that driveway before. It is a hazard coming out. You have some sight distance issues. They're actually making the square footage, if I heard it correctly, smaller than what it currently is. I agree that the internal illumination would match the rest of the signs in the neighborhood. And I'm sure you understand with that question I asked. I don't think that I find it difficult to justify the hardship for the height if they can make it 12 feet, which would meet zoning. Just because someone has a sign to be reused, I understand the financial considerations of the applicant and wanting to do that, but I don't feel that's a criteria for the variance meeting it. So if we can, when we come to that,
We'll take them as two different.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Nick, thoughts?
Well, I don't have a problem with the height issue because I think the hardship argument could be that everybody else is enjoying that height, or we've heard testimony that folks in the neighborhood are enjoying that height. And I think to be denied that similar enjoyment would be grounds for reasonable hardship.
Andrew, any thoughts?
I agree on the illumination. It makes sense. I mean, I also agree with Craig. I don't think we, or at least I can say there's a zoning gaffe, or even if there was, that can't be a basis for our decision. But I think what makes it unique is it's the Loudon Road frontage, where, you know, any comparable use on Loudon Road would have the illuminated, and so it would be kind of consistent with the other establishments.
Very good.
Which makes it different than I think the other IN or IS uses.
Let's take up the first request for a variance, the table of maximum sign dimensions to permit a sign of 14 feet 10 inches tall where the maximum height allowed for a freestanding sign is 12 feet. Would anyone care to make a motion either for or against the granting of the variance?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Yay.
Nay. We're deadlocked. Okay, we all go home? Yeah.
No, well.
What happens with the tie in our?
That means it
Well, no,
fails.
you need 3 in the affirmative for the motion to carry. So
Right,
that
so
motion is.
that motion fails.
Fails, yes. So
All
now you
right.
move on to the next.
Are we required
Yes. you
to
would
make a
need-
motion on the issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'd make another.
We have to have a motion that carries.
Right.
Okay.
Table, recess, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I will make a motion to deny the request for the height variance due to the fact that the hardship presented was more of a financial savings by the applicant than a true hardship.
Is there a second?
W.
I'll second the motion. I think in 400 years of being on the zoning board, that's the first time I've ever done that. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Well, that leaves us, I guess, with a motion to table, so that we can set this aside for a 5-member board. Yes, sir.
I retract and say we will do it at 12 feet, so I could maybe get this moving this evening?
No, you can't. No.
You could withdraw.
Yeah, I mean,
There's nothing
Request.
stopping him from doing it 12 feet because that's compliant, right?
Again, yeah, he doesn't need any approvals to do it at 12 feet, so you could just table it, and if he never requests to take it off the table, then it just dies on the table.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Yeah, you can.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to table item 1?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, let's move to item 2, sign illumination, to permit an internally illuminated sign where they are supposed to be lit externally. Discussion? Or a motion?
I move to approve for the reasons that were stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The internally lit sign is approved. And the
And just to
height question
clarify,
goes into cyberspace.
because it was tabled, it sits there. If you, or the applicant ever wanted to take it off the table, you'd have to file a new application or request to remove it from the table, pay a new fee for a new hearing. So it's still living out there, but it's basically just by the wayside at this point.
So my permit's not approved as of yet?
Well, the permit will be approved with a 12-foot sign if that's the way you want to go.
Right.
If your client wished to take it off the table and bring it back for a 5-member board, they would have that option to them. They would just have to notify us, pay a new fee, and come back at that point in time.
But as far as if you go in 12 feet at the illuminated, permit's granted, we're good to go.
Yes, the variance,
Install it tomorrow if I want.
yeah, the variance has been granted.
Right.
You still have to get the permit, but we can take care of that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Good night.
And then just go through design. Yeah.
Next case this evening is 4018 Capitol Commons LLC. The applicant wishes to install a 330.75 square foot wall sign between the 4th and 5th floors on the east side of the building and requests the following variances. 2, signs prohibited to permit a wall sign to be located above the sills of the second floor windows and greater than 25 feet above grade where such signs are not permitted. And under building permitted signs, to permit a new building 330.75 square foot sign for use located on upper floors where no additional sign area allotment is available for property located at 11 South Main Street in a CBP, Central Business Performance District. Swear to tell the truth.
Yes.
May we have your name as you testify, please?
Yes, my name is Jamie Simchek. I'm with Simchek Planning and Development, representing Capitol Commons and the Hotel Concord. We would actually like to defer to the August meeting.
Oh, all right.
Sorry to waste your time there a little bit with the description. but-
What we'll do then is recess the meeting till August. Do I hear a motion to recess?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You recessed for a month.
Thank you very much.
Well, actually 3 weeks, I think.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Take all that paperwork.
The next case I will step down for. Nick, would you take care of 4118, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Next case before us is 41-18 Beatrice Murphy. Applicant wishes to construct an addition to an existing single-family dwelling and request a variance to Article 2844H, the Table of Dimensional Regulations, to permit a maximum setback of 17 feet 2 inches plus or minus from the rear property line where a setback of 25 feet is required for property located at 8 Walker Street in an RN residential neighborhood district. So, sort of tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and where you live.
I'm Beatrice Murphy. I live at 8 Walker Street, Concord.
Please tell us what you'd like to do.
I'd like a variance for the sunroom for the property. Now, the property borders on Santander Bank, which was once that bank, but now is empty. All the house lots in that neighborhood are with large houses, small lots. My lot, the house was large at one time, and it burnt down. So it was a few years ago, a contractor built a house for his daughter, a small house on this lot. So the house is 3 years old, small house. It's unique because on either side, there's no problem with the setback rule. However, in the back, there's a slight problem. But it's unique because the whole backyard is bordered by this bank and the large parking lot, the commercial lot. I was aware of that when I bought the house, but I wasn't aware of all that went on there. Being an empty lot, people use it all the time. They use it for meeting, you know, trucks, cars, motorcycles. So that's the reason. I never thought about a variance or putting in a sunroom, but this for me is a way to solve that problem. And that is what creates a hardship, that all that activity. So the sunroom, building it, the lot is still far less dense than all the surrounding lots. It doesn't infringe on anybody because there's a fence around that area, and the sunroom, of course, it's a small addition, it's not a big addition. The sunroom is not going to be able to be seen, not by either side or the bank. So I think this is a very good reason we have variances. It's a win situation for me, certainly, because it will give more sunlight, it will give fresh air, it will give a little more room and more exposure to the outside, the trees, the shrubs, and make me feel a lot more comfortable. So it's in keeping with the ordinance because it's still less dense than any piece of property around. It doesn't infringe on anyone's rights. In fact, I've had 4 neighbors come to me and say they're really happy that I'm there. I have upgraded the landscaping, and they're happy about that. The sunroom will give a slight enhancement to the property and a little more value. So it is, I think that's helpful for the neighborhood. I think they're very happy. But I think they're happy because it does have more value for me, but I think it reflects on the value of their houses too. In fact, my next door neighbor came to me and said he was going to paint his house. Hey, well, that's good. I mean, it's a Concord neighborhood, the city, and so it's good for the city to have people interested in upgrading the neighborhood, the city neighborhood. I think that the uniqueness is the bank, and so I think this is a good reason for this variance. It is a win-win situation. It's a win for me, certainly, for the reasons I said. But I've been told it's great for the neighborhood, what I'm doing. They know about the sunroom, but see, they're not affected. They're not going to see it. I mean, there's a fence there, so. And it's good for the city. So I feel this is the reason why we have variances, and I feel it's good for all concerned. I thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Murphy?
No.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the request? Please step forward. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to the request? Craig? Any comments from?
Sure. Just a few facts here. The lot is an existing non-conforming lot. It's a bit over 6,000 square feet, where 10,000 square feet is the minimum in the RN residential neighborhood zoning district. As the applicant pointed out, this house was constructed in 2015. It was constructed in a manner to meet the existing setback requirements, full knowledge and understanding of that. The applicant also purchased the house just recently in January of 2018, and again with full constructive knowledge of the restrictions that apply to the lot. The commercial property adjacent to it has been a commercial property probably 50 or 60 years. This isn't any significant change in the surrounding areas there. That's all I have to add for facts. So.
Is the commercial property a conforming, or was it a conforming use in that area?
I think it's a non-conforming, well, it's an allowed use. There's aspects of the property that are probably non-conforming now regarding buffers around the perimeter and such like that. If they were to redevelop this and there was to be a change of use from a bank, business office to, say, a retail shop or something of that nature, they would be required to place a 10-foot buffer, vegetative buffer on their side of the property line around the perimeter. Well, the perimeter where it abuts the residential zoning district.
That property hasn't been an active bank in a couple of years.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago, but yeah, it's been at least a year, if not two, that since Santander went out of there.
Okay.
We had an issue case a long time ago with another company wanting to go, CVS, I think it was, wanted to go in there too. So.
Craig, in looking at the map for the whole neighborhood, would you say that most of the buildings here are non-conforming in terms of setbacks, would meet the current setback requirements?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Again, they were built prior to the current zoning ordinances and in compliance with what was then in existence. So as zoning ordinances change, then people are required to stay within the requirements under these current zoning ordinances.
Any other questions of Craig? And with that, I'll declare the hearing closed.
Looking at the application, for me, the fact that the nonconformity being proposed abuts the commercial use, and it's the parking lot of the commercial use as opposed to the building. The fence around the property does buffer it from actually the neighbors, including the bank. I know this doesn't show the current, I don't believe, configuration, because I don't know if there's a fence there that we can see.
No, the fence,
it's
a brand new fence around.
Okay. So and again, they're still set back from the abutting property. It's 17 feet instead of 25 feet. So I think it's a reasonable use. I don't think it will have a negative impact on the neighborhood. And I think the applicant was trying to be as diligent as possible in meeting the conformance of the zoning by where it's being placed. So.
Andrew, any thoughts?
I agree.
Yeah. So is that a motion?
It is a motion.
And
Second.
You're agreeing is a second?
Yeah,
Okay.
motion to approve, I second.
Yes.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. Mr. Carley, you can have your seat back.
I will take that paperwork back.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
And you can pass that over.
Thank you.
All right. The next case this evening is case 4218, Granite State Naturals for Northborough Realty Holdings, LLC. The applicant wishes to convert an existing building currently used as a fraternal social club to a retail use less than 5,000 square feet and requests a special exception from Article 2824J, the table of principal uses for property located at 170 North State Street in an UT urban transitional district. I should note that a special exception has different criteria from a variance. Gentlemen, swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Yes. Would you identify yourselves for the record as you testify, please?
Scott Walker, Premier Properties. I represent the owner of this, of the property at 170 North State Street.
Stephen Janot, my family owns Granite State Naturals.
What would you like us to know?
Good evening. Stephen is one of the owners of Granite State Naturals, along with his brother, Matthew, and his parents, Alan and Margaret. And they have been located at 164 North State Street, operating there for, operating there for about 31 years. And yes, so this property here, 1899, is where they are right now. I gave you a little map. So where we are on North State Street, if you, at the intersection of Pennacook Street and North State, this is the fire station, Botwell's, Dallas Pizza, and then two houses up, there is the corner of Foster Street, and the Janot family owns that building on the corner. Then they own this property here where they operate. And what we're looking to do here in this application is move across the parking lot. So there's a parking lot on the north side of the building, and the next building over is currently, or has been up until a few days ago, the Moose Lodge. And that is no longer operating there. The Janots have operated Granite State Naturals for 47 years in Concord, a number of locations. And in '87, they purchased this property here at 164, and they run a natural food store. They sell healthy foods and related items, lots of bulk foods, alternative dairy products, refrigerated items, body care products, supplements, vitamins. And also in that building, they have a health-approved kitchen in which they needed that kitchen in order to break up the bulk foods. They have about 9 employees. At any one time, maybe 5 are on site. And we tell you this because the same operation that's taking place today is what they want, how they want to operate next door. What they need is more space. And the new building at 170 North State Street will allow them to expand their lines and give customers wider aisles, a better shopping experience, that have more storage for stock. It's only a little bit larger than their current building, but the current building, it's the total square footage. They operate on 3 floors in the basement. On the main floor, they have people working on the 2nd floor, and this will put everybody on the operation all on 1 floor. And they plan to operate similar hours at this property. Weekdays, they run 9 to 6:30, Saturdays 9 to 5, Sundays 11 to 5. Deliveries would be similar. They have UPS and FedEx deliveries on a daily basis. A couple times a week they do have large trucks, and that is 1 truck on I believe it's Tuesday, 1 truck on Thursday. And that would also happen at this new location at 170 North State Street. They have had a good relationship with the Moose Club, and they have allowed, the Moose Club allowed them to use this parking lot that wasn't theirs to bring those trucks in off the street. And that's just how they would do it in this, with the new store. There are dumpsters on site now that have been used between the two properties. Now they will just be the Janot's. And the other thing that's on site, there's a garage, there's an old garage on the site of 170. It's in, it's in disrepair. It's falling down. It's in pretty rough shape. The plans are to remove it right away. I talked to Craig, and it's small enough. It's under 1,000 feet. If they decided to replace it, it's not a planning board item. They just need to bring it into conformity. It sits in the setback, and they very well may replace that garage at some point. Oh, they have a picture of it. Yes, it's
Doesn't even look that good.
it's a lovely piece of real estate.
The other side's not much better.
The other side's even, yeah. So that would go away. So so tonight, asking for a special exception and to relocate the retail business from 164 North State to 170, and to continue to operate a retail store there. The most recent occupant was the Moose Club, but this property has a long history of retail. Prior to the Moose, there was an Indian restaurant. Prior to that, for many years, if you're from Concord, the Rosa's Market was there. Before that, for even longer, I believe it was Jennings Market, a neighborhood retail store. Meeting the requirements and standards, there is, this lot is about 34,000 square feet. I think the requirement is 10,000 square feet. There's a parking lot of 37 spaces on site. The combined coverage between the building and parking is about 58%. I think it is 58%. You're allowed 75%, so there's probably room to do some expansion at some point if they wanted. But the parking lot, it would be, having control of the parking lot would be fantastic for their business. So will this create undue traffic congestion and or impair pedestrian safety? We don't think so. The applicant has operated for many years right next door, and they with very limited on-site parking. The new location has plenty of on-site parking, and should keep traffic congestion to a minimum, and certainly not impair pedestrian safety. Will it provide for adequate and proper facilities? Will it not overload public and private water, drainage, or sewer systems? There's adequate public water and sewer servicing the property. The paved parking lot is existing. There's no known problems with drainage. The request will not create excessive demand on municipal police, fire protection, schools, or solid waste. There's no reason to believe a higher demand for police, fire, or schools will take place. Solid waste will be contained on site in dumpsters and removed by private haulers. We don't believe it's going to create any hazards to health or safety. The requested use will not create a hazard to health, safety, or the welfare of the public. The applicant has operated in the neighborhood for many years without incident. This business is actually a fixture within the neighborhood already. Is appropriate for the proposed location. Yes, the use is appropriate for the location. Once again, Granite State, already a neighbor, and just looking to move retail market from one side of the parking lot to the other. All of this, by the way, is in the UT transitional zone. which is why we're here, changing the use, or the occupant, we need to get a special exception. And is it in the spirit of the ordinance? We believe it is. The use is in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance. Retail has been contemplated within this ordinance. This is retail under 5,000 square feet. That's what we have for you tonight.
Any questions from the board? Dick, any questions? Laura?
Yes. I can see you took the pictures today that you just passed out, because I live down the street, so I pass by all the time. And I am going to compliment your family for the beautification of not only Granite State Naturals property, but when you bought the property next door, and did a lot of work cleaning that up. So again, if this gets approved and then goes to the planning board, the planning board has to approve.
It won't need planning board
Okay,
approval.
okay.
Yeah.
Or that's fine, then I would anticipate that you would do the same type of beautification on this
We
building.
certainly intend to, yes.
Okay. I have a question. So who owns that parking lot? What, is it the Moose?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, no. The Moose they were tenants.
Okay. Or the property that the Moose Lodge is on that you're here for tonight, that
Right,
is
the
the
170
owner
Moose
of the parking lot. Okay. I guess my question is was there any formal agreement between your current location using that parking lot, or it was a handshake? 'Cause I'm just curious about whoever might go into the next.
Yes, it was an agreement between the Moose Lodge
Okay.
and ourselves, and we cooperated on snow removal, and
Okay.
it's been a very friendly relationship over the years.
Because I was just curious about moving your operations next door and the parking that your clients have already used, if that's going to impact the
And the
next.
Janats have no intention of selling this property
Okay.
at 164. They plan to continue owning that property.
Okay, all right. No
Any
other
questions?
questions?
Andrew, any questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Scott, just out of curiosity, do you know when the Moose moved into that, took occupancy of that property?
Oh, boy.
I believe they've been there for 15
Yeah,
years.
about 15 years is what we were
Okay,
kicking
so it's
around the
been
other
since
day.
2001.
Yeah,
then, okay.
yeah.
Just my own curiosity on it.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Please come forward. Yep, right over here.
First of all,
Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat, and would you give us your name as you testify, please?
Yes, my name is Richard Bilodeau. I live at 7 Prospect Street. My house borders the empty lot behind the parking lot. And did you guys see it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yep, that's number 7 Prospect Street
Okay.
right there.
So one of my concerns is, first of all, I'm not here to oppose the store. I really, they've been good neighbors all along, and I've used their store myself a few times. Having said that, I do have a disagreement with the time they have the garbage truck coming to the parking lot to pick up the dumpsters and dump them on Wednesday morning. Guys like out there at 5:30 in the morning. It's very disruptive. So I just wonder if there's something they could do to rearrange with the people they hired to dump their dumpsters to come at a later time during the day or something.
I believe that's well beyond our scope, correct?
It is, but it's not beyond theirs.
Ah, right.
Correct that.
So that's my biggest complaint. My other concern is, now, are they leasing this property, or did they outright buy it?
The testimony we heard is that they're proposing to buy it.
Okay. So I'd like to know, do they have any plans for the empty lot behind the parking lot, back to Prospect Street?
That's something you ought to discuss with them offline, because it's not part of the zoning appeal.
Okay. So other than that, that's all I have about it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Any comments from code enforcement?
Nothing really. I went back to check and see if there were any past variances or other zoning action related to the current uses or past uses. There doesn't appear to be anything in the past on that. Just a note about the parking. They may have had an agreement between the two of them, but the Moose Lodge at least would have required all those parking spaces for their use.
Right.
So they couldn't dedicate those parking spaces to an adjacent use. I haven't done the parking calculation for, retail operation if all those spaces would be required for the retail shop, but yeah, they can have a gentleman's agreement, but it wouldn't count towards parking on the other side there, so.
Very good. With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have a request to grant a special exception to move Granite State Naturals next door into a building which they would purchase, which was previously the Moose Lodge, and prior to that has been a market under ownership of different people at different times. Discussion.
I was just going to say that looking at the special exception criteria, it's a unique case because the applicant has been operating adjacent to this property, so they are well aware of the traffic, the noise, the lighting, everything else, pedestrian issues, moving just across the parking lot into the same square footage to do the same operations. I don't think we'll have any impact. The Moose Lodge has been active and has been operational for 15 years at that location, so I think it meets the criteria for a special exception.
Would you care to make a motion?
I didn't know if anybody else wanted to speak.
They'll have a chance.
Okay, then yes, that's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. Andrew, anything?
I understand the neighbor's point about the trash. I mean, I think, thinking about it, it does relate to the criteria, but it doesn't sway me against approval because it is a UT, and trash removal would be expected regardless of the type of tenant in there. Maybe they can discuss making it less invasive, but I'd still be inclined to approve because I think Mr. Walker laid out the criteria pretty well, and it's not going to overload the resources of the city.
Nick, any thoughts? No. Very good. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The special exception is granted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, we got some more paperwork here.
I know.
All of this.
There you go. Those are yours. Those aren't the application.
Okay.
Oh, wait. There you go.
Nice and tight.
Next case is case 4318, Roger and Marion Clattenburg. The applicants request a variance to Article 2822 zoning districts established, Section B3, the single-family residential district, to subdivide a 1.acre lot from a 14.43 acre lot intended for a single-family dwelling without extending sewer service to the newly created lot for property located at 15 Frost Road in an RS residential single-family district. Note, a portion of the southeast corner of the proposed lot is within the RO residential open space district. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
May we have your name, please?
Art Siciliano, land surveyor.
What would you like us to know?
I'm working for the Roger and Marion Clattenburg. We're proposing to subdivide their property into two lots. A 1.8 acre lot in the northeast corner of the property that fronts on, this whole property is 14.43 acres. It's in, this portion's in the RS zone. And they allow, the RS zone allows 12,500 square foot lots. And requirements in that zone are to hook up to the sewer. This particular lot's 1.8 acres. We've received state subdivision approval for on-site septic and well. It's it's a larger lot than any of the lots that have hooked up in that zone near this property. The sewer is up on Dominique Drive and up by Millbrook School, so it would be a long way to carry that sewer to this particular lot.
How far is a long way?
It's about 1,500 feet.
Okay.
Craig, can you show that on the map, just
Yeah, well,
when you,
the existing, well, Dominique Drive grade differentiation, there's no possibility of really connecting to that. The sewer manhole on Curtisville Road is right here. And so we're talking,
It's further than I thought.
so bringing it to the center of that property is about a little over 2,300 linear feet.
okay. Thank you.
So in that case, again, we're subdividing off a lot that's larger than what's required in that zone. We can put a leach field on that site, and we feel that the sewer hookup is unnecessary for this particular case.
Is that it?
Yes.
Questions from the board? Nick, any questions? Laura?
Not a question, more for discussion later.
All right. Andrew, any thoughts? Or questions, rather?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Any comments from code enforcement?
Yeah, well, this property has been zoned residential single-family for a number of years, even prior to the adoption of the 2001 zoning ordinance. I think as the applicant mentioned, in a RS zone, 12,500 square feet would be the minimum required lot size. This was not a mistake, I don't believe, to zone area as RS in anticipation of, additional development similar to the Dominique Drive, Carriage Hill Estates development here. I believe, the idea was that they would be able to bring roads down through here and do a full-fledged development down there at some point in the future. And that could very well still happen at some point in the future. The smallest lot size in the city of Concord for areas that don't have sanitary sewer to them would be a 40,000 square foot lot, and that would be the minimum required in that situation. Other than that, I have nothing else to add.
Can I just ask you, Craig, am I looking at, so it's 2822B3 is what they're?
Yes, okay, that's the purposes of the zoning districts. And that describes the RS zone as being areas where full municipal sewer or full municipal services are permitted or are available for water and sewer. So for any development within the RS zone, the applicant or the owner is required to provide water and sewer to the property line.
Oh,
well, to the middle of the property.
So the variance is to the definition of the RS district.
Right, the requirement under the RS district for.
It says full, in areas with full municipal utility services, so
right.
that, okay.
Yeah. And that has been a issue that came before the board many years ago. Braco Day Drive, the Scott Lawson group, Ham Rice made the interpretation that the definitions under the various zoning districts required, where it said water and municipal, water and sewer were provided, did mean that it had to be installed, and the board upheld Ham's determination on that too at that time. So,
I think there was also an appeal for a church out on Old Loudon Road many years ago.
Okay. Yep. Yes, you're right. I took that one too.
To ask to be forgiven for this. Question for you. The appellant states that the purpose, or implies that the purpose of this requirement is to ensure that there's sewer for lots that don't have adequate space for a septic system. But my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the reasons these regulations are made is to help amortize the sewer. In other words, once municipal sewer goes in, the idea is that everybody is on it.
Well, in a case like this, it would be, the cost of the installation of the sewer would be picked up by the developer,
Right.
as opposed to Airport Road or Loudon Road, where there was a sewer extension project done. And in that case, as various septic systems failed, the adjacent property owners were required to tie into the sewer. And at that point in time, they had to pay a sewer investment fee.
So if this appellant were to construct all of that sewer, would they ever be reimbursed for the cost of doing that, or part of the cost of doing that?
Most likely not.
Okay.
It's a,
Even though others tied into it later?
Right, it's a first-in type situation, and then it's turned over to the city for maintenance, and it's a cost of doing construction. And again, you know, I would say that the intent or anticipation of extending the sewer here, you know, is based on the fact that that RS zone could be subdivided into many, many smaller lots,
Right.
and then the economies of scale would offset the cost of the extension of the water and the sewer in this case. And I also, you know, it is probably important to note that the location of this lot that they're subdividing is the farthest corner up here. You know, it might be a different story. Well, you make your own decisions. I'm just saying it's not as if they're doing 15 lots along the street. So, yeah.
Very good. Where were we?
Go ahead. Question.
You said that the ordinance says they have to do water and sewer. They're only asking for a variance for sewer. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what you said versus what they're asking for versus what's required. I just want to make sure.
Well, those are three interesting things.
Yeah.
Because they're not asking for relief from a water line, and their plan shows a well, if I'm not mistaken. So, before we move forward, as I see the applicant making concerned faces in the audience, let's make sure what the requirement is.
And I may have, I gotta think back on that for a second. Because it does say full municipal services. The ordinance under the table of dimensional regulations only references lots where no municipal service is available. Just trying to think what it's a good point though, and I say I may have erred on something here may need to
Maybe table this and make sure that everyone knows what's required versus what's being asked for.
Yeah, we may have to modify the,
We could attack this a couple of ways. We could table it, and if it's a question you can answer quick, and to give the appellant the opportunity to amend his application.
I'd like to take a couple minutes to pull up the Scott Lawson case and see how that was written up. So, yeah, if you want to just table it for 10 minutes, and I think...
Why don't we table it and move on to the next case, and then we can revisit this. Do I hear a motion to table?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Don't go away. We're going to come back to this, but we, in order to respect people's time, we will move on to the next case and then come back. 4418 Hannaford Brothers Company is the next case. The applicant wishes to remove the existing 4 non-conforming building signs with a total area of 459.72 square feet of signage and replace them with 6 signs with a combined total of 410 and a half square feet, and request the following: a variance to the table of maximum sign dimensions for non-residential districts to allow a combined area of all 6 signs of 410.5 square feet of building signage where a maximum of 200 square feet of building signage is allowed, and a variance to Article 2869B1, permitted building signs, to allow a total of 6 building signs where a maximum of 3 building signs are allowed. All of this for property located at 73 Fort Eddy Road in a GWP Gateway Performance District. Gentlemen, you swear to tell the truth?
We do. I do.
Thank you. If you
Speak for
would,
myself, I'm sorry.
well, collective swearing in is perfectly all right. If you would be so kind as to give us your names as you testify.
I am David Raymond. I'm an attorney from Cleveland Waters and Bass. I'm sitting in tonight for Phil Hastings, and I represent Hannaford.
My name is Jay Lord. I'm here representing Hannaford Brothers.
What would you like us to know? Why do you believe the variance criteria are met here?
Go ahead.
I think, we're Hannaford's in the process of remodeling a lot of their stores, and right now, the purpose of us coming here is to modify and relocate the current signs to reduce the nonconformity, improve the visibility, and modernize the aesthetic appearance of the store. Right now, we have 2 signs on either side of the building of 229 square feet. The existing, right here on both. And what we're proposing for a total, I think, of 459 square feet. What we're proposing to do is to go to 3 signs, which is this one, and this one here, which is a total of 205.3 square feet on each one, for a total of, I think, 410.6 square feet. So we're reducing the nonconformity on them, both of those. As part of that, we're also asking in the 3rd sign to raise it to 28 feet, where 25 feet is allowed, only to be able to center it into this area of the entranceways on both sides.
Okay.
Can you see this all right? I don't see it.
Yes, we can see it, and we also, it was online.
Yeah.
Is the existing signage there under a variance?
No.
No.
No, it's not.
Okay, but it's non-conforming?
It's non-conforming.
It's non-conforming, that's right.
Okay.
And these are the signs. This counts as a sign. That's the logo sign that would be 28 feet above the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And these are 2 separate signs. Which would be on both sides. This is not there now, where it says supermarket and pharmacy. I think initially it was not a pharmacy. They didn't have a pharmacy, so that's adding that for informational purposes.
I think it would be most helpful, actually, to have the other poster up where we can see it, because that puts things in context. Thank you.
That's
Want to move it around?
Everybody see it? Yep. Okay, very good. Oh, we got it there. too.
Yeah, in our packet.
I apologize for interfering with your presentation. We already have the information.
That's okay.
Could you point out again for me the 6 signs versus the 4 signs?
On each side, there's 1, 2, 3. On both of these, 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 here, 3 here for 6.
What about the welcome sign? Does that count as a sign or not?
No.
Okay.
Where the existing, there's 2 here and 2 here.
Thank you.
Okay, carry on.
Oh, just, since I stepped out of the room, did you intentionally not open the 2 cases at the same time?
I did not. Should I have?
Yeah, you probably may as well open them, because again, it's a single lot and it's the same subject. It was 2 requests.
Yeah, I was curious to why is it? It's just that they requested at two different times, basically.
I think it's a good idea to keep the votes separate on them.
Yeah.
Well, we can certainly hear the testimony,
Yes.
since it's the
Yeah.
same information. So what I will do, for the benefit of people who are hanging on tenterhooks to hear this, 4518, the applicant requests a variance to Article 2867, signs prohibited under this ordinance, to allow 2 of the proposed signs to be placed so that the highest point of the signs is at an elevation of 28 feet above grade, when a maximum height above grade of 25 feet is allowed for property located at 73 Fort Eddy Road in a GWP Gateway Performance District. So the signs that they are asking for a variance for On the area side of things and the number side of things, they are also, in some of the cases, 2 cases, asking for a variance because of the height of the sign as well on the building.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll deal with them separately, but if you want to give us the information in one presentation, that's great.
Okay. We filed a fairly detailed application.
Which we have read.
Setting forth the, and I assume you've read it, setting forth the various standards for the variance and why we think we meet them. So I don't want to be redundant, knowing that you've read them.
Want to hit on the high points of...
I think that the sort of the bottom line is that, as you pointed out, we have a non-conforming but legal situation now, and we're trying to just modify these signs. And I don't think the modification is all that large. This is sort of a unique area. If you approach the building, the frontage is on the east side of the building, which is by far the, less prominent side of the building. There's not that many parking spaces there along the side. And when you come into this heading north on Fort Eddy Road, I mean, you see the front elevation. So that's why we want to have the signs on both sides of the building, as they are now. And the square footage, the total square footage of the signs is less than it is now, so the nonconformity will be less. And it's obviously, as you know, it's a very business-type zone. There's all sorts of other businesses there. There's Shaw's, there's Lowe's, there's Demoulas, Market Basket just up the road. And they all have, signs like this. And the purpose, I think, of the sign ordinance is multiple, but one of the purposes is safety and communication, or 2 of the purposes are. And we think that it's important, the signage, the way we propose, is probably better at doing that than it is now. It shows that there's a pharmacy. I think that's important. Some people want to know that a supermarket has a pharmacy or doesn't have a pharmacy. And the logos are 28 feet high as opposed to 25, but this, I think you can have a higher sign with a 3-story building. And this is, when you look at the side of the building where the logo is going, that is fairly high. It's almost, I consider a story about 10 feet. So I think that isn't that about 30 feet on the side where the logo goes anyway?
Yeah, the peak is probably up around 35,
okay.
36 feet.
So, given the neighborhood, given what's there now, given what we're proposing, we think it's a reasonable request. We don't think it's going to, the literal enforcement of the ordinance, we think is not necessary in this case because of the community it's in. It's not I don't think it's a huge variance request, and I think it's consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I certainly don't think it's going to have any negative impact on values of surrounding properties. So,
any questions from the board?
I have one question.
Please.
Could you put the Hannaford logo 3 feet down and have it be conforming? I know aesthetically it's placed right in the center of that wall area, but again, to my untrained eye, it looks like there might be 3 feet there where that peak could go down, and I just don't know. I don't want to assume that me looking at it means it can happen.
I'm going to let the engineer answer that question.
Yeah. In this world, I guess anything is possible. The reason they didn't do that, if you can probably see it in this bill, is that this is recessed back in probably 2 or 3 feet to give it definition. And this is set up so just the very bottom of the sign was going to be there. To pull that down 3 feet, you probably need to get rid of, you'd probably have to outfill this so it was a flush surface to be able to bring that down to do that.
Okay, so looking at the actual photo versus, because the rendering doesn't
rendering
display that it's an
really
inset.
show it. That is absolutely true.
Okay, all right, thank you. You answered my question.
Any other questions from the board? Nick, any questions? Andrew?
No.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Or in opposition to it? Craig, I have a question for you. I understand that the existing signs are non-conforming, but there is no variance. Did the zoning change after they went up?
Yeah, prior to 2001, you were permitted 2 square feet per linear foot of frontage. And I also believe prior to 2001, you were allowed to count the highway side of the property for sign frontage. That's changed. It's only, the only frontage that you're allowed is a street from which you have legal access from. So.
Did you have any other comments?
Yeah, there's the Harborside case out of the Portsmouth area, which discusses hardship and sometimes in larger buildings, proportionate size signs in of themselves create its own, well, reasonable hardship that are recognized as a hardship, being proportional to the facade that it's sitting on. So.
An issue of scale.
Right.
With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have 2 requests before us. We'll start with the first, which is actually 2 requests in and of itself. The variance for the sign dimensions to allow 410.5 square feet of signage, 6 signs, and the variance to allow 6 signs instead of 3 signs. Discussion. Okay, any thoughts?
Well, in terms of nonconformity, I think we've lessened the degree of nonconformity by reducing the sign sizes. Secondly, and I look at this, I see Hannaford Supermarket and Pharmacy. To me, that looks like 1 sign. I didn't realize that counted as 2 signs.
If it were on a panel, it would be considered 1 sign, I think. Is that true, Craig?
Well, if they wanted to encompass the entire area, including the dead space between those 2 signs, it could be counted as a single sign.
But then it would be that area.
Correct. Yeah. So where they're allowed 3 signs per frontage, people often opt to just do each sign individually to minimize the square footage.
So when you calculate the square footage for a sign that's individual letters, is it just the letters?
It's the smallest rectangular figure that encompasses the whole sign. And if there's an odd T that sticks way up above the sign, we'll kind of allow a little jog. As long as I can calculate it with my simple mind, then we can make those little jogs.
Well, that means the zoning board can manage it too. Very good. Did you have any other thoughts?
Those are my 2 comments.
Okay. Laura?
I agree with Nick. I think that we're reducing the nonconformity with the square footage, and the reason they're asking for more signage really is to just do the qualifier of that it's a supermarket and pharmacy, which I agree doesn't look bad. It looks like it is part of the original sign, so I don't have a problem.
Andrew.
The difficulty I have with these kind of cases is, the ordinance is, there's a number of larger establishments in that vicinity that are all, I'm sure, not conforming, and their signage would have to be much, much smaller. And so naturally, they're periodically going to want to update their signage, and it essentially means the zoning code as applied in this particular area is purposeless, because everyone is roughly competing to have the biggest and the best signage there. Nobody's going to want to go back to what the code dictates. So if we strictly enforced it, no one would ever attempt to improve their signage, which would be a bad thing overall, because we wouldn't have any improvement in the signage. So I think we have to grant variances in these situations, and it puts us in the position of essentially creating zoning instead of applying it. So I think it's a difficult predicament, but having said that, I can't disagree with the reasoning to approve it.
To segue on from what you were saying, I think in my mind, what creates a hardship here is the scale of things, and the fact that the signage ordinance did not necessarily anticipate a large open parking lot or people seeing this from the interstate highway. And therefore, they do have a special condition with scale. What gets tricky with the zoning, which I think is consistent with what you just said, is that they're not the only ones in the neighborhood with that same problem. However, they're the only ones in the neighborhood that are asking us for a variance at the moment, and it certainly, to my mind, seems reasonable, given the location of that building and the fact that there's so much space between it and the other buildings that it's anywhere near, and that people tend to see it from a good distance away the first time they are interested in identifying it. So it does raise the question of maybe as you say, the ordinance needs a tweak here, but I think you can certainly make an argument for a hardship based on scale. Other discussion? Do I hear a motion? Or do we have a motion already?
No, we don't.
No. Do I hear a motion? This is just on the sizes of the signs and the numbers of the signs.
So, just 4418.
Correct. We'll get to the other.
And I move to approve both of them. It's hard to say they're unreasonable. They're not really out of character, out of line with what's there now.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variances number 1 and 2 under 4418 are granted, and now we will take up discussion of 4518. This has to do with raising the signs, the 2 logo signs up into the gable of the building, which puts them above the height limitation. I have that right, don't I, Craig?
Yes.
Okay. The existing buildings do not violate that, I don't believe.
They don't have the logos there. If you look at the
They have the
picture.
logo here.
Right, they moved the logo from the side of the building to put it over the entrance.
Yep. Discussion.
I was going to say that obviously I was hoping it could become in conformance by moving it down 3 feet. Looking at the rendering, it looks possible, but looking at the actual photo of the architecture, it's not possible because the space above the window is an inset, so the logo wouldn't fit there. You'd have to rebuild the building and prop up that logo there. So although it is out of compliance with the zoning, it's 3 feet. It fits with the character. The logo is currently there. It's just on the side of the building. And I don't think it's out of character with the surrounding structures, and I don't think it's going to cause any harm.
Nick, any thoughts?
Great.
Andrew? No. I think, again, the issue of scale applies. Putting the signs up high makes them visible to people who are driving down a busy road on Fort Eddy Road with stoplights and traffic crossing and so forth, and if they're headed to Hannaford Brothers, it makes it easier to know where it is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous.
There was no motion.
Who made the motion on that one?
All in favor of making a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance for the reasons stated.
And I'll second it.
Is there a second? Rose is giving me that look she gives me when she gives me that look. Now all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wow, I had a wild card motion there. I could have attached anything to that vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome, gentlemen. The next case, which is the last one on our agenda this
No, we
evening.
got the recess
Go back
case.
to-
Oh, the recess. Yeah, let's go back to that.
Andrew.
All your paperwork.
Do I have a vote to
Hard stuff.
take the tabled case off the table?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Aye, or me, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, look what happens.
All in favor? It's not even late yet.
I know, sorry.
Say aye.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
Aye.
Okay, we're back off the table. What's the news?
Well, apparently I missed the water extension there because under previous requests, it was for the Lawson Group, it was water and sewer utilities. I think in my own defense, where I overlooked it was I was looking at a similar case over on Portsmouth Street, and it was 2 single-family lots they had water to the site. So when I read it, that water issue skipped my mind. We can recess the case until the August meeting. We'll send out follow-up notices just to clarify the record, and then you could open up again at the August meeting.
Do I hear a motion to recess the case for a month, or until the next meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And Laura Scott gets another sticker for her helmet.
So they don't have to pay another fee in that situation?
No, we'll cover the notification to
we
correct this one.
Oh, so now we're sending it.
With the apologies of the zoning board, unfortunately, we have to put that case off for a month so that your appeal is properly structured, so that when you go away from here, happy or not, at least you have a correct arrangement of affairs.
So we'll be taken up again at the next zoning board meeting. It was required to have water and sewer extended to the property. I omitted the request to waive the requirement for water. I only had the request to waive the requirement for the sewer. So there's only half of it.
But I'm still requesting the whole part. I mean, the variance would be.
The variance would be for the whole enchilada, assuming you don't want to put in the water.
But it was noticed.
I know, well, I mistakenly didn't, I said sewer, I should have said and water, but.
Yes.
The variance was still for the article.
Yes.
Right.
But it was only noticed for sewer.
Okay.
So just to be
'Cause if we-
technically
yeah.
correct, so there's no procedural error.
Because if we approve what was granted, then you couldn't do it, so it's doing.
It's our error, and we apologize. That takes care of that case, which moves us to the next case, which is the last on the agenda this evening, 4618, Eric, Justin, and Jen Stevens for Harold Lawn. The applicant wishes to establish a commercial indoor recreational facility and requests a variance to the Article 2824J, the table of principal uses, to permit said use in a district where such use is not allowed for property located at 63 Bog Road in an RO, or residential open space district. You swear to tell the truth?
Yes.
Would you identify yourselves for the record as you testify, please?
Hi, my name's Eric Stevens. I'm here with my brother Justin and his wife Jen.
Justin Stevens.
Jen Stevens.
And so we are looking to get an appeal for variance just for usage initially for the property at 63 Bog Road. It abuts Bog Road with a RM zoning, and then the rear of the property is RO. We currently have a signed purchase and sales agreement with the Lasan family pending approval of this initial variance for the usage. What we're looking to do is at the far back corner of the property, put a 60-foot by 84-foot prefabricated barn on a slab and use it for indoor weddings and receptions and outdoor wedding ceremonies. Also events, primary usage Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we don't necessarily want to restrict ourselves to the rest of the week for events. We are going to try to be good neighbors. We've already gone and spoken with many of the abutters. And just about our plans, what we're looking to do, and just to make sure we meet any of their concerns. We're also trying to be good stewards of the environment here. We've already had a civil engineer firm come in and do a wetlands survey because a lot of the concerns with how wet the property is, and it is quite wet. But we met with them, showed them the scope of what we're looking to do, and they are very receptive to it. They say that the project, they feel it's feasible with the existing wetlands. So we've been looking for properties for a while to try to do this. We've really struggled to find something we're looking to do a rustic wedding venue. And the usage for a wedding venue is going to be in a commercial area. Unfortunately, for a rustic one, you need it in a rural area, which most towns zoning for that is rural, a residential, I'm sorry. So our intent is to build this here. The lot itself is very unique. It's 33 acres, much larger than any other one in the area. And you can see there's a very large drive that sets it back from any other houses. And where we're looking to put it is actually over 1,000 feet. The structure itself will be over 1,000 feet from any existing homes. It's also heavily wooded, so we feel it'll provide a nice
buffer for both noise and visibility. I don't think that any of the tenants, or I'm sorry, the abutters, will even be able to see the property short of the entrance and the driveway. And noise-wise, we're going to try to be very mindful of that, stick within the requirements of the noise ordinance. And we're really thinking we're not looking to build a party place or anything of that nature. It's a nice, quiet venue for rustic weddings. The barn construction itself, as I said, was 84 by 60. It's going to look very much like an equestrian horse barn, except, on the exterior at least. Interior-wise would be, set up like a typical function hall. And it's going to meet with the physical form and character existing in the neighborhood. And additionally, equestrian centers and stables are permitted in the RO zone, so the outward appearance would be meeting that requirement. And it's also a special exception within the RM zone, which we also fall into. We've attached a site plan, which I think you all have access to. That is conceptual. It's not stamped by an engineer or anything like that. We're just in our very early initial phases trying to figure out the feasibility of this project. And as depicted, as I said, it puts us 1,100 feet from the closest residence. And we're not looking to remove brushes or trees along the property, especially to the south of the bike path that you're looking to put in with the town here. So short of slight widening of the road there, we're not looking to do too much in that area. And we've already met with the wetlands engineer, and he's actually going to work that process for us with the Department of Environmental Services for that part of it. It's going to be a minor project there. And I think my brother's going to speak to the hardship and the other parts of this.
So my brother Eric mentioned the special conditions of the property. So the property itself, as you can see, on the paper we gave you, we listed the abutters along Bog Road. As you can see from that list, it's over 15 times larger than any of the properties that abut it on Bog Road. There are some bigger properties behind it. They're located off of another road. I don't have the road name in front of me right now. In addition, it's serviced by a 1,200-foot long driveway, which allows us to do what we're trying to do. So essentially, the unique shape of the property, specifically the large size and the setback, would make what we believe a perfectly reasonable location for a non-intrusive, low-impact commercial use, such as a wedding venue, this rustic wedding venue. We feel that strict adherence to the existing zoning ordinance would not advance the purpose of the ordinance at all, because the unique size and shape of this property provides us with the opportunity to position the barn in a location far enough away from adjacent properties such that all provisions in the ordinance, section 2815, are satisfied. Our intended use of the property doesn't interfere with any of the 9 explicitly stated zoning ordinance purposes in that section 2815. As my brother mentioned, it would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood at all. It actually, from the outside, it fits into that neighborhood. It fits the physical form and character of the neighborhood. The exterior of the barn is aesthetically pleasing, and it would not be non-conforming in either R or RM, like I mentioned. And we don't feel that operating a wedding venue poses any readily evident threat to the public health, safety, or welfare. And we feel that granting this variance wouldn't cause any harm to the general public, which outweighs the benefit to us, the hopefully soon-to-be property owners, due to the points I mentioned. Jen, do you want to talk about some of the benefits?
Absolutely. We feel adding this venue would benefit the public in that it would provide jobs to wedding planners, caterers in Concord, florists, photographers, waiters, musicians, landscapers. The venue could be used as a community asset for a place of assembly for neighborhood groups and fundraisers. It would increase the patronage of local hotels, bed and breakfasts, restaurants, and other establishments on those weekends. Provide for an additional cost-effective wedding venue option for engaged couples in the greater Concord area. And it also prevents other uses of the land that could lead to an increased burden on the city school system, such as a subdivision or a cluster development. The appearance, as far as the impact on value on the surrounding properties, as I said, our intended use would prevent another use such as a cluster development or subdivision, which could negatively impact the surrounding properties. The appearance from the road would be no different from a named subdivision such as the Vineyards, which is just above, which is located directly across from the property, and all of the parking would be over 1,200 feet from the roadside. We don't anticipate that any noise would be audible from the road or any adjacent properties due to the setback. As you can see in the proposed site plan, how far back it is. And the additional traffic created by a wedding venue would not likely cause any congestion, as arrivals and departures are typically spread across a few-hour period, as well as typical times for weddings are on weekends or evenings, so that's not going to conflict with any kind of commutes or general everyday traffic. And with typical, or I guess the way weddings are kind of working now, people are doing a lot of carpooling, using buses and limousines, and we will definitely encourage that as a mode of transportation to help reduce traffic volumes and to keep the greater public safe.
The other thing I wanted to mention, my brother mentioned, we walked around to some of the abutters, and not all of them were aware they didn't receive the notices from the city. So, we've had notices go out, and sometimes this happens. We have new people that live in our road. It had nothing to do with the city's fault. Sometimes they're tenants from apartments, so the owner gets it. I'm not saying anyone's to blame, but we made them aware of this, and we wanted to talk to them a little bit about what we were trying to do and answer any questions they might have, because not all of them can join this type of meeting. And we talked to about a dozen different people. Every single one of them were supportive of this idea. Some of them actually one of them dropped off a letter today at the city hall, I believe. And the two concerns they had were noise and traffic, that's what we expected. Those are the two things you would really be concerned about. So we looked up some traffic studies for wedding venues across the U.S., and they all use the same types of numbers. They use 75% of the maximum capacity. Our maximum capacity would be 180 people. 75% of that's about it's 135 people. And then they take that and divide it by 2.5, or 2.5 people per vehicle, because that's also accounting for limousines and buses. So the 2.5 is a little higher than you would typically see. So if you do 135 divided by 2.5, it's going to get you to 54 vehicles. Looking at the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, there's 2,892 vehicles that turn onto Bog Road off of Route 3 every single day on average. It's a little less on the weekends, but that's the average in 2017. That was from, I believe, July. I don't have it written here. So from our calculations, this is going to have, across the week, just 1.06% increase in traffic. As far as noise, we have, before we walked around to the abutters, we actually set up a speaker on the property to do our own test. We ran a speaker with some noise at over 100 decibels, measured 5 feet in the air, 3 feet away from the speakers. It was not even audible from the rail trail, which is nowhere near any abutters. You could not even hear the speakers. So our concerns about noise, we're kind of relieved with that, because that was a concern we have too. We don't want to be disturbing anyone, so I did want to make you aware of that.
And with those traffic numbers as well, just if we were to put a cluster development in there or something like that, which is an approved usage, those numbers would be much higher and the impact would be much greater on the road, both Monday through Friday and on the weekends.
The other thing, we're at the age where we go to quite a few weddings. If you've been to a wedding, at the reception, not everyone leaves at the same time. You have some family members that leave right after the ceremony, some people that leave at the end of the night. So those 54 vehicles are spread out across usually 5-hour period. So we don't feel that the peak hours of traffic are going to have much of an impact. And it's the same thing with the arrivals. The wedding party, the vendors, everyone arrives a little bit earlier. Sometimes your family will get there an hour early, and then there's just people that show up an hour late. So we feel that the impact this will have on the neighborhood is minimal.
And one final thing, I just want to be clear that we're just looking for the usage variance right now. We understand we need to develop a master site plan and go through all the other review boards prior to actually breaking ground and doing this project. So we're just trying to establish the approval for the feasibility of this project at this time.
It's a contingency for our purchase of the property, so.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
I have some questions. Some of Craig and then some of you guys. I just wanted to clarify, so the outdoor use isn't allowed. Outdoor recreation is allowed on the property.
Yeah, I was going to go into that a little bit
Oh.
more in my discussion. But yes, outdoor recreational facilities in RO zone have recently been permitted through a conditional use permit.
Okay.
And,
That's like a tennis court?
tennis court, but it also expands to include event venues too.
Oh.
And this comes out of the agritourism issues that have arisen in the past few years with existing farms and people wanting to be able to use farms for things other than farming. So we looked at, the best way to approach that and came up with the idea of using the outdoor recreational facility category, which is already a category in the zoning ordinance, and massage the definition a little bit so that it also included outdoor events, weddings, parties, family reunions, other things of that nature, mainly things that would not create a disturbance. One of the key factors, though, is that it is an outdoor recreational facility. Again, the intent is to allow more flexible uses of existing farms and things of that nature. But one of the key factors that we kept out of that was the ability to add new buildings onto these properties for the use of these outdoor recreational facilities. We intentionally were trying to avoid allowing commercial development of these agricultural properties and properties in the agricultural district. So a farm that might have an existing barn on it could use that existing barn because it existed at the time the ordinance was adopted. But as they are experiencing here, coming in and trying to build a new enclosed facility, essentially a commercial facility, is not permitted under the current ordinance. So,
hence the request for variance.
Correct.
Any other questions, Laura?
No, I'm all set for now.
Nick?
Can someone just show me where's the proposed barn venue on, just want to make sure I'm
We're
reading this
looking to
right.
site the barn right back here. The resolution's kind of rough here, but there's a little path,
I
and there's a
see.
clearing, and this is where we're looking to put the barn itself, and then the parking area would, right here tentatively. And we ran the numbers for what we need, and I believe we're at 74 spots, and we were able to site and fit that into that area that's already existing without clearing anything.
And so the two lots, the one, I guess, to the south and to the, I'm not sure if I'm.
Yeah, so they don't have access from Bog Road, and if you scroll down, you'll see it's quite a distance.
Are there homes on those lots now, or are there big?
At least not in this upper portion here. There might possibly be homes.
Most of this area down through here, Andrew, is wetland. Swamp, bog, thus the bog road.
Bog road.
Oh, I thought it was just.
Can't see that.
And what about that kind of rectangular lot directly below them? Yeah, is there?
It's landlocked.
That wetlands too?
I'm not yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
look at
yep.
it.
Yeah, there's I can't remember the exact term for it, but it's because of the aquifer or whatever that runs through there. Yeah, I don't believe that's
So no one's going to be coming in, okay.
So the answer, Craig, was that the land that's to the left in this photograph is boggy?
As far as I know, or wetland, boggy land.
In order for them to, can I speak? Yeah, in order for them to access it, they need to go through the strip of land that's actually part of this property. It's under easement, but it has been granted in the past by the existing owners, but they can't access that where the cursor is right now without accessing it from Bog Road because of the wetlands.
I see. Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to it? Please come forward. Where did I do that letter? Here it is.
on the fence, not really in opposition. I just have a couple.
All right,
questions.
well, have a seat and tell us what you...
I'm Kathy White. I live at 124 Bog, which is the little clear. We got an abutter notice, but we're down here with that.
Sorry.
We're here. And our main concern was noise. It's a really quiet neighborhood. To go out and sit in our yard, have a campfire. It's just very quiet except for the occasional cars that pass by, and I'm really afraid of losing that. On the other end of Bog Road, there is a house that has a party once a year, and they have a live band, and we hear it. That's about a mile away. It's outdoors. They have it during the day, couple hours, it's done, it's over. I'm really concerned about our weekends, listening to them every weekend. And I wondered if there was a way that the music, the band or the DJ would be inside the barn, and if the barn was insulated for sound, I would be fine with that. I'm really concerned about outdoor music. I don't know when you guys did the test. We were probably not home.
We did it Monday night, but just so you're aware, we don't plan to have any outdoor speakers.
I'll let you come up and offer a
Okay.
clarification so
So-
it's in the record and on the television and so on.
That was my main concern, was just noise. Where our household is early to bed, early to rise, I like to sleep with the windows open. I'm worried about a mass exodus of traffic of the late party goers, all leaving at once. And the other concern is the turning onto Bog Road. The green arrow no longer comes on, and with the summertime traffic, race weekend, Sunday afternoons, I've sat through that light 3 cycles long waiting to turn because the green arrow doesn't come on, and so that's another concern that I have. But other than that, I mean, I would much rather see this than a cluster development. And it sounds like that they would be great neighbors and that they're looking out for the neighborhood, and I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a letter from Raymond Mercier Jr. and Donna White of 81 Bog Road. They have met with the Stevens and concerning their proposal, and they feel their proposal to build an 84 by 60-foot structure to be used as a wedding and reception facility is a good use for this property. We have no objections to the board granting a variance to the current zoning. We support a change from RO to C3 zoning for this lot for this purpose. That's not something that's within the board's power. We can grant variances, we can't change the zoning. Due to prior commitments, they could not be here this evening. Now, let's see what's this. Oh, that's not news. Craig, comments from code enforcement.
Well, again, there's comments about, better than other alternatives in cluster development, but it's not been demonstrated whether or not this property would even be suitable for a cluster development, considering the amounts of wetland out there, thus non-buildable land. Who knows if they could even put a cluster development out there. Another thing, when it comes to residential developments, there is a moratorium of having roadways, dead-end roadways, cul-de-sacs greater than 1,000 feet. They're talking about a 1,200-foot driveway here. But also part of the reason that moratorium is in place is a safety issue. Roads greater than 1,000 feet, well, 1,000 feet is about as far as fire department or other emergency vehicles can get, if their equipment is blocked from being in. And the problem with a one-way or a single access street is you could have a blockage down at the end there for whatever reason, windstorm, trees down, many reasons, and they would not be able to get to the into the property to provide emergency services. So that's always been a concern with the fire department, police department, and such like that. As I mentioned, the city has just recently adopted an ordinance, an outdoor recreational facility ordinance that specifically left out, thus prohibiting indoor recreational facility or new indoor recreational facilities in the RO zone. So that just went into effect 2 or 3 months ago at the most. So it's a very recent amendment.
Thank you.
Craig, question. So, but if a variance was approved here, nothing, that obviously wouldn't change the noise ordinance in any way. It could still be enforced, or as a practical matter, it would be hard to enforce once something like this goes in.
The nuisance noise ordinance is difficult to deal with. Again, intermittent noise, some of the language is, noise that would otherwise disturb a reasonable person.
So you have to go find a reasonable person and have them stand next to it.
Some of those are few and far between.
Yeah, it can be difficult.
Especially at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. People get less reasonable, more noise they listen to. Any other questions for Craig? Mr. Stevens and Ms. Stevens, would you like to come forward and offer any factual clarification in response to anything you've heard? You're still sworn in.
Sorry.
I don't need to swear you in again.
So in response to her concerns about the sound, we certainly appreciate it, and we're trying to be mindful of that. What we're looking to do with the barn, it's going to be fully insulated, which will also noise-proof, well, not noise-proof, but deaden the noise. And in terms of outdoors, the only noise we're looking to have out there is potentially a PA system for the justice of the peace or whoever would be, reciting the vows on those type of things. Any other noise in terms of a DJ or a band would all be inside of the building. The front doors, as we plan it, wouldn't be open at all times or anything like that, so it wouldn't be out and just blasting. Additionally, there were some concerns expressed about an indoor venue and being that it's prohibited. Just in response to that, there's a court case in 2000, Rain Court versus City of Manchester, and the Supreme Court ruled that after Simplex versus the town of Newington, hardship exists when special conditions of the land render the use for which the variance is sought as reasonable. And I think that's very important for us to note, that I think this is a reasonable use, and just because it says within the zoning that it's not an approved use, this is a unique request, and I think it is a reasonable use for this property.
Well, I would add to that, though, too, part of that decision also said that there needs to be unique circumstances related specifically to the property that differentiates it from other properties similarly situated and or other properties in the RO zone. So unless there's a specific unique circumstance related to this property as it sits in the RO zone, the granting of a variance then could mean that a variance for any property that has a similar situation, open space in the RO zone, would also be suitable for granting a variance for this type of use. So there's a lot more to that case than just what you recited there. So.
Absolutely, and I'm not a lawyer by any means. I'm just going off what I saw there, and also if you take a look at the property, I think it does look and really is quite unique.
We're not going to start the testimony over again.
All right, I'm sorry about that.
But I appreciate your clarifying the question of the noise.
And how long did you say, how long will the driveway be till you get to the proposed barn? Do you know?
So about 1,200 feet to the parking area, and then a footpath that will also provide for emergency response vehicles. There'll also be 2-lane to the parking lot area, so it wouldn't be one way. And also you'd have access from once the bike path's approved. Potentially for the fire department,
So it would be 2 ways. The 1,200 feet would be
That's
2
correct.
ways, and then the footpath could allow for emergency vehicles.
That's correct. We'd ensure that it would be adequate for the fire department. We'd work with them on that.
Thank you.
Well, and on that aspect, no. The footpath is not going to be designed or developed for emergency vehicle use of that nature. No, it's not in the plans.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have a request for a use variance to put a wedding venue on an RO property in an RO district. We heard testimony that the size of the lot is the thing that makes it unique. We also heard testimony from code enforcement that the specific question of adding buildings in RO districts for this type of use has been addressed in a recent amendment to the zoning ordinance. Discussion. Nick, any thoughts?
Certainly, the large size does create a unique situation when you look at the character of the whole area, although there are different zoning districts in there. 33 acres is certainly a substantial lot size, and I think in terms of usage, it certainly is probably less intrusive than other potential uses, although we're not sure what other uses there could be there. I don't think the driveway is our issue. I think that's planning and safety probably, so I don't think we have to concern ourselves with the driveway issue.
Laura?
I have a question. What's the properties, what's the zoning to the right? What's the darker green?
This is residential high density over here, residential medium density here, and then again, RO, residential open space for the remainder.
Thank you. I just didn't know what the colors meant. I do want to commend the applicant for putting such time and research into it. I used to work for the Regional Planning Commission, so I think it's amazing that you found the traffic numbers. So that is good that you looked into that and took the time to make sure everything is correct. I do think that there is a demand for more rustic wedding venues. However, I do not feel that the application that you've put in front of us meets the criteria for a variance, because the uniqueness that it seems to be in the hardship is this is what you could find. The property can provide other uses that meet zoning. That's just not what you're proposing. I do agree with code enforcement that, saying that it's less than another use, that doesn't sway anything with me, because that's what's allowed. And if someone wanted to do a subdivision in there that had kids in the school system, that's allowed. And just because your use is different in some ways is not, to me, a criteria for a variance. And again, the uniqueness of the land seems to be that it's unique for what you could find to do what you're proposing versus the land itself being unique for the use. So for that reason, for those reasons, I am not in support of this.
Andrew, thoughts?
Well, it is a unique lot, and true, possibly there could be some other uses in there. I mean, there seems to be some discussion about whether you could put a subdivision or cluster development or something else in there. I mean, nobody's done it, obviously, and maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. But I think that regardless, it's what they're trying to do here seems reasonable and not inconsistent with the spirit of the ordinance. Taking them at face value that they did that test and that it is going to be insulated, and they are really far from any homes or any likely homes in the near future due to the wetlands. It seems it seems credible that the noise won't be out of character with the neighborhood, and traffic I also don't think will be out of character. So I'd be inclined to support the variance.
All right. We may wind up with another deadlock here, because I'm inclined to agree with Laura that although you could argue that it's a reasonable use for this piece of property, it's not what it's zoned for, and I haven't heard any testimony that convinces me that the criteria for hardship have been met. In this particular case, there could be other things that are true about this lot that I don't know that could argue that none of the other uses that you could put out there could you expect to do, but I didn't hear that. So I'm inclined to vote to deny in the event that I have that opportunity. Does anyone care to make a motion?
I'd move to approve the variance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
Nay.
The vote is a tie. That brings us to, would anyone care to make a motion to deny the variance?
I will make a motion to deny the variance on the fact that no credible proof was provided that a hardship exists for the property.
For the second time tonight, I think I'm going to have to be make the second. I'm not seeing anyone shake his head. I'll second the motion. Any other discussion on the motion? I think we've pretty well talked it over. Is there, all in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
All right. I guess what we're going to have to do is table this case until we have a 5-member board and can break the tie. I don't think we've ever had to do that before.
Yeah, I got to double check, because the motion to approve has failed already.
Right.
The motion to deny.
It's also
Yeah, usually, I was going to say in other, it's in, sometimes in towns, it's in the rules of procedure. If there's a tie, what happens? So, yeah.
And I'd have to look at my Laughlin to.
Well, you could, it's possible that once you do your research, we'll discover that the variance has been denied.
Yeah.
Is that something that could be done quickly, or is that something that we need to wait a little bit for?
I probably need to look at it tomorrow.
All right.
I still have the other case, too. Did we?
Oh, no, we tabled
No.
that till next
Yeah,
month.
'cause,
Yeah, no, we have no other cases this evening. So what I think we should do is, I guess what we can do is table the case pending advice from code enforcement as to what the status of the case is, given that we have not had a motion pass either for or against, although we did have the motion to grant fail. We had the motion not to grant fail,
Right,
too. So
right, so-
we're kind of,
So either one requires a 3 vote.
yeah. So is there anyone who would care to move to table the case?
I will.
Is there a second?
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that puts the case on the table. The board can take it off the table anytime it's ready to.
Well, the applicant would have to notify us and make a request for the issue to be taken off the table.
Okay. So, Craig, if you would,
We'll research this tomorrow.
and send out an email, perhaps?
I know I've read up on this, but it's been a long time ago.
Well,
We have not had
nobody memorizes everything.
And again, when I've come across it in other communities, it's usually this issue, and then we put it in our rules of procedure, clearly saying if it's a tie, what the process is supposed to be, so that you don't have to keep going back and forth, and then the applicant isn't left in limbo.
Yeah, adding a 5th member, there's something about that doesn't quite ring true either. Other business before us, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Yeah,
I
you weren't
was
here.
not here.
Well, anyhow, we got 3 votes on that.
I know, I just wanted to make sure. I
Craig, any other business before us this evening?
Just the information that I left out before you there regarding findings of fact, criteria, and criteria, on the findings of fact, worksheets, and things of that nature. You asked for a little more information on that, so
Okay.
that should give you some guidance on how to proceed with those.
Very good. Then I guess that takes care of it for this evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
You were just going to get up and leave, weren't you?
I was, and I've done it before, too. There's
Second.
probably meetings still open from 3 years ago. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hey, if I can call a vote on a motion,